Okay, so we're going to have my best Big Bang Theory brainiac-ish terminology going on here, but we're going to talk about coitus. Coitus is defined as penetration of the vagina by a penis. So, I mean, it's a very specific word for a very specific sex act. Okay, so how often do people engage in coitus? Well, this is one of those helpful, crazy maps that I found off the internet. And it looks like if you look at the legend, blue would indicate the fewest acts of coitus going on, and red would indicate the most frequent acts of coitus. So it looks like, Idaho and Wyoming are like having the most sex, Nebraska, and that Mississippi and New York are having the least. Washington, D.C. Oh, I think Washington, D.C. is the ultimately least, 4.62. So if you like having coitus, probably you shouldn't move to Washington, D.C. Instead, you should apparently move to Idaho. So yeah, but don't worry, because Washington's not is not doing poorly in this category, right? If you enjoy having coitus, we're in an okay state. All right, I don't know what to make of that map, but I can tell you that people are having less sex than they were in the 1990s, and in this chart, by sex they mean coitus. So we have the age range of the people being surveyed were between 16 and 44. The blue bars are the men and the red bars are the women. And you can see in 1990 to 91, 6.4 and 6.1 versus today, the average, well, I guess that isn't today anymore, is it? 2010 to 2012, the average is 4.9 to 4 and 4.8. So, I mean, that's a significant drop off for the number of times people are having sex per month. Now, you might be thinking, what goes into that? Well, a number of factors. A lot of people are not going out and finding partners anymore, like getting married, settled, moving in together, stuff like that. They're like sort of staying isolated, and a lot of people are blaming the internet for that. Yay, we can sit on our keyboards and we can type stuff, but we don't actually have opportunities to have live sex acts with other people. Some people have blamed the delaying of marriage for people. The average age has gone up to 27 for men and 26 for women. And so without a regular partner, you don't have as many opportunities for coitus. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that we could look at, but the thing is, people are reporting having sex less often than they reported having it in the past. Now, this is from Japan, and it's actually becoming a pretty big concern in Japan. Because this is how often do you have sex with your spouse? This is not just how often are you having sex, people 16 to 44 years of age. This is, hey, married couples, how often are you having sex in Japan? And you see that the biggest wedge is the people who reported that they haven't had sex for over a year. And then you see the once a year, once every 6 months, once every 3 months. Okay, so you have 34, 37, 47, 57% of people in Japan report that they are having sex once every 3 months or less with their marriage partner. That's not a super optimistic thing to be seeing. You see only 3% who say they're having sex every day. What's more common in the U.S. is to say once every 3 days, and that's only 10% of the Japanese respondents. So they're concerned because in Japan, people are not having sex at the rate that they probably should be for health and for healthy relationships. And so they're really concerned about what's going on over there. Which brings up the issue, well, I thought nobody had sex after they got married, right? Here we have that cartoon again with the lady knitting. I don't know what that's always about. And I love her curlers being just sort of stuck to her hair. But he hits the no sex, which is the most common response on this wheel of sex, but she goes, well, you can have another but only because this is your birthday. You have one more chance, honey. That's kind of the stereotype that once people get married, they don't have sex anymore. But what research has actually shown is that married couples have more sex than non-married people do. Even if you include live-in couples, married people tend to have more sex than even live-in couples do. So marriage seems to foster something that makes coitus more likely rather than less likely. Some people say because they feel secure. Some people say that it's because as they are married for a longer and longer period of time, sex becomes more meaningful and less goal oriented. I mean, there are a lot of things people say about it, but the data shows that it actually increases with marriage. Now, of course, the first year of marriage is the most frequent. The old joke is that if you every time you have sex during the first year of marriage or the first year that you're living together, but the first time that you have like unfettered access to each other, if you put a bean in a jar, like a dried bean in the jar, every single time you have sex during that first year, and then you take a bean out of the jar every time you have sex for the rest of the time that you're together, you'll never empty the jar. I don't know if that's true or not, or if that's just sort of a thing people say, but I mean, the first year of unfettered access is really, I mean, people are really super excited. There's a lot of sex drive, a lot of pent up ideas that they really want to try out, all sorts of stuff that makes that first year really active. And then, of course, life starts to intervene, and you have a job, and you have kids, and you have these things that you have to take care of, and you have a long commute, and you're tired, and your boss is writing you, and all these things that then make it a little less pressing to have regular coitus with your partner. Now, how long does it last? Again, with this crazy map, here we have the lightest blue is 1 minute 21 seconds to 2 minutes 18 seconds, and then all the way up to the red, which is 3 minutes and 38 seconds to 7 minutes, basically. So it looks like Idaho must be the place because they're having sex more often, supposedly, according to the one chart, and then when they do have sex, it takes longer. I don't know. But the thing is, I want you to notice, they're talking about how long the actual once you're having coitus lasts. They're not talking about foreplay, they're not talking about any of the wooing or the seduction or any of that stuff. They're talking about from the time a penis is inserted into a vagina, how long does it take before the act is over. And a lot of times people think, I don't know, again, I think we get sort of misrepresentations from pornography. If you ever have seen it, it seems like a man on a pornographic movie can keep an erection for like 40 minutes. Most women who have sex with men report that the goal of sex should not be protracted thrusting. That's not what makes sex pleasurable, that it just took a really long time before he ejaculates, right? That's not really the goal. Like, it's all the stuff that happens before coitus begins that makes sex satisfying for women. So long drawn out coitus isn't really what women are that interested in. Now, sometimes men are, and so, but a lot of times men, to make it seem like it's lasting longer, will distract themselves to make it last longer. And I've heard of men saying that they, do really complex math, or they think about a baseball game that they watched today, or they think about something else so they could take their mind off of it and make it last longer. Well, taking your mind off of something that you're enjoying should not be the point. It's not, you sort of lose the enjoyment if you're not actually there and present and enjoying it, right? So probably all the buildup is what couples should spend their time on, and then the final thing should be the actual coitus, if they're even going to engage in that. So duration shouldn't be the goal. Goal orientation is really not should not be on the up for consideration when having sex of any kind. Now, we stack up pretty okay compared to the rest of the world. It's not listed by who has the longest sex. It's listed by color coding for some reason. So you have to kind of sort through here to discover that Australia seems to have the longest average duration of coitus. And then the shortest duration of coitus seems to be, let's see, I think we're looking at Italy, right? 2 minutes and 50 seconds on average. I don't know what to make of any of that. The reason why they ordered it the way that they did is because the United States is #1 in frequency. So they ordered them by frequency, and then they color coded them by average duration. So that's why they don't line up neatly. You'll notice there's no data out of South America or Africa or a whole bunch of Europe, right? I mean, apparently not everybody wants to talk about this stuff as much as apparently, Americans and Canadians and Mexicans, and apparently Russia doesn't mind sharing, and, a few Western European countries. I don't know how they got the data supposedly out of China. I have no idea where they got that. I'm not super confident that that data is even completely accurate. Okay, the likelihood of reaching orgasm in any given coital event. Okay, so we have on the x-axis the males on the left and the females on the right, and then we have these different bars that show the far left bar, which I can't describe by levels of grayness, but not the darkest gray, the second darkest gray, would be people who had coitus as part of a first hookup. And then we have the lightest gray is people who have hooked up with this same partner one or two times previously. In the next level of gray, we have 3 or more previous hookups with the same partner. And then we have the bar on the right represents people who are in a relationship with the person. And what you see is that for both males and females, the probability of orgasm increases the closer they are to a relationship with this person. But you see that most dramatically for the women. You see that, only 31% of women who have had 3 or more previous hookups with this partner reach orgasm, whereas 68% of women who are in a relationship with this person reach orgasm. So this picture shows that for both sexes, being in a relationship seems to produce probably more satisfying coitus, sexual contact, but especially for women, that seems to be true. Women are more orgasmic with a partner that they are in a relationship with. That's one way to put it. Okay. Then we have a breakdown from the same author of what kind of sex act they were engaging in. And this is just women. So we're breaking down just the women. And of course, now we've got the hookups broken down on the x-axis. So we've got first 1 to 2 previous, 3 or more previous, and then we get in a relationship on the right. And now the bars are representing what they did. So we got oral sex on the left, intercourse only next, intercourse and oral sex, intercourse and self-stimulation, and then intercourse, oral, and self-stimulation. And what you see is that first off, if you just look at what they're doing, women who are in a relationship are much more likely to report that they engaged in intercourse, oral sex, and self-stimulation during their sexual act. So it kind of implies that women who are in a relationship feel more comfortable and are more likely to have sex acts that are more likely to produce orgasm for them. So you see that 92% of women in relationships report doing all 3 of those things. 80% of women report intercourse and oral sex. That's much more likely to produce orgasm than intercourse alone. Intercourse only shows only 55% of women in a relationship who had intercourse only reached orgasm. So you'll notice that women tend to be more orgasmic when they are doing something besides just intercourse. But then you'll notice that the women who are in a first hookup, you have only 15% who report engaging in oral sex. You see 26% who say that they had intercourse only. Only 37% who said intercourse plus oral sex. You do have a larger number who said that they did all 3 things than who did any one of the other bars. And so you see them engaging in those behaviors, but not reaching orgasm at the rate that you see women who are in a relationship or who have had 3 or more previous hookups with this individual. So you really see that for women, they do more of the behaviors that are going to lead to orgasm, and you also see that they are more likely to reach orgasm from those behaviors when they're in a relationship. All right. Enough on that. So we will come back in the next chapter and we'll talk about some of the problems that come along, sexual dysfunctions and stuff like that.